This is going to be interesting, okay? The basis project is about the transhumanization, okay? And what the T27 implants mean to him. Oh boy. Okay, I'm going to give it to you, all right? But don't frighten me to death. Okay? Over to you, Kieron. All right?
Can you hear me? Yes?
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Over to you, Kieron.
Fire away, thanks. Okay. I'm losing my cherry here today, so if I don't structure things perfectly, I mean, forgive me. And also, anything really could happen, because I literally am, at times, a human being that is remote controlled completely. And I'm no hippie either. In fact, the two things I've heard most in my life from other people are that, he has to look it up on a list, you know, that I'm so very different when people meet me to how I'm described by other people. And the other thing is that people think that I'm going to be big. I'm going to be a very big person, but I'm not. I'm rather small, but there's reasons for everything with regards to me, and it's something I've learnt. And I've also changed what I was going to talk about to a degree as well, because I looked at the list of people here today, and you know, they know a lot more about the history and background of mind control and the programs that people like me, that have produced people like me, than I actually do myself. So what I want to concentrate on is talking to you about TIs. Now, how many of you know what a TI actually is? A TI is a targeted individual. Well, I'm glad about that. Not many of you do. Because you need to know. Because there are, well, hundreds at least, but I believe hundreds of thousands perhaps, but definitely thousands around the world. It is the most horrific situation a person could be put in. And I'm going to kickstart things with a lady today that I encountered when I was researching. It's not a real name, but she's very secretive with regards to her real identity. We'll call her Moo. She's on YouTube. And Moo is a monarch, basically, a monarch mind control target and a targeted individual. She's very intelligent, very eloquent, and explains things very well. So I'm just going to take a seat myself and hand you over to Moo. She'll explain things. Bear with me just a moment. I should have enlightened you a tad further. Target speak. We're the targets. The perpetrators are the ones that target us. What Moo's talking about here is gang stalking. Gaslighting is another phrase it's used. Essentially, it's rogue elements of the security services that target people like us to keep us subdued because, well, for numerous reasons. We're being used for all sorts of reasons, but just to enlighten you a little bit further, the perpetrators are them and the targets are us, and that should about sum it up.
Hi guys. This is from a document that I recently wrote called Things Perpetrators Say to Justify Gang Stalking, Street Theater, Direct-to-Conversation, and Electronic Harassment. By the way, in the document I misspelled the word perpetrator as perpetrator on purpose because that's what they are. They're traitors who are perps. The target is sick. The target is a loser. The target is a bully. In my case, that's a big joke. Target was born out of wedlock, which makes them a bastard, so God doesn't love them anyway. The target is gay. The target is anti-gay. The target is a drug user. The target is a bum. The target is a racist. The target is a child molester. The target is stupid. The target is a whore or a slut or is ugly or evil. The target is the devil or a demon. The target is an MK Ultra victim, and they don't want any witnesses. The target is just a bitch. The target is a pervert. The target is crazy. The target did bad things to people in the past, or has a record, or is a bad parent, or eats cheesecake, which is just me trying to have a sense of humor about all of this. The target knows too much. The target is too old. The target is too young. The target is an embarrassment to their cult, I imagine. The accusations levied against the target may or may not be true. Many times the target was born into this program, set up on purpose to make them look bad after much trauma, as is the case in my life, sort of like torturing an animal and blaming the animal for reacting to being psychologically tortured and for fighting back. Often the target is a victim of mind control to a greater degree than the general population, that is, and is being blamed for the things they did as a result of the most wicked form of mind control using trauma, among other things, and sometimes even implants. Now here's why none of these excuses are good enough for what perpetrators are doing to the targeted individuals. The perpetrators possibly do not know the whole truth about the individual they are destroying. They have possibly been told half-truths and or outright lies about the individual whom they are targeting. The target may have been handed off from one group of perps to the next, with each successive group being told only part of the story, since in many cases the target has been a target since birth, through programs such as the Monarch program or MK Ultra. They have been mind controlled throughout their life, unbeknownst to them, and possibly unbeknownst to the perp as well. If you are a non-consensual human experimentee like myself, then you probably know what I'm talking about. Many of you who have read my articles or watched my videos already know that I found implants in my ears in 2008. That means I have possibly been an experimentee since I was born because I was adopted and kept at a hospital for the first 6 weeks of my life in the custody of an adoption agency. This also means that anything I did while under the influence of these implants, which may indeed be cochlear implants based on the location of the RFID chips that I found, is directly attributable to those who are using these implants to influence my life or who have used them since I was a child, since I never consented to the procedure in the first place. The mind control, again, does not equal consent. Some of you who have been targeted are aware of something called the Truman Show effect. We call it that because as targets, we see bits and pieces of our life stories displayed in movies, music, and television. This leads me to the conclusion that we, the victims of this horrible and inhumane crime, are like slaves whereby all of our intellectual property is stolen from us and others get to profit from our suffering. It is the most disgusting crime that could ever be thought up, since the victim, so far, has no real proof, and the perpetrators have plausible deniability. And the nation denies that slavery even exists. The scary part is that when I look back over my life, I have noticed this effect going on to some degree throughout it. One example of this is the fact that when I was very young, maybe about 6 or 7, I had this thought. What if the world around us that we see isn't actually real? What if it's like some kind of movie covering our field of vision? At the time, I had no idea about virtual reality, and this was how I put the concept into words. Years later, I would see Disney come out with the 365-degree movies at Epcot. Eventually, I would see the concept in movies such as The Matrix and Dark City. It seems to me that someone or some group has VIP access to the collective unconscious and is able to steal from people who are held down for just such a purpose. Some of you may see how this is done on both physical and metaphysical levels. Now it seems that is what I am seeing in this world. It is a world where we are made to believe that everyone has the same chance in life, but it is hardly the case. It has become a world where our intellectual property is stolen, and then they sell it back to us in the form of movies, music, and television. What if there's a whole section of the population going through this on some level? One example would be how there are inventors who have become targeted individuals. Another would be how Renee Case, the nurse who invented Essiac-T, had sold her idea to a pharmaceutical company that shelved it after promising that they would research and develop her formula as a cure for cancer. Another would be how Ayn Rand died not too long after she and the producer of the film Atlas Shrugged had an argument about her wanting artistic rights to make a certain scene the way she wanted it. During the argument, the producer said something like, "That's all right, I'll just wait until you die and make the movie how I want to." This happens all the time, although most people either don't notice it or don't want to admit it. I bet that all these people writing in blogs are being stolen from in some form or another. We live in a wheel where everyone steals, is what I heard the band Bush say some time ago. I would hope that this form of slavery doesn't last forever, because I fear it causes major problems in people's lives, probably on a subliminal level, and they are possibly disturbed by the sense that they are being ripped off but cannot put their finger on what is really going on. As a result of this subconscious feeling that you are being robbed, you may have emotional issues that end up affecting the way you interact with others. Eventually, this will get used against you, even though it cannot be truly blamed on you. Would those who perpetrate this horrible crime on victims continue to do so if they were conscious of what we victims have been going through as a result of this legal type of slavery? Any negative karma generated by the slave happens as a direct result of living in reaction to an unknown cause of suffering. And that karma must be reaped by those who benefit from the slave's misery of being a slave in a society that refuses to admit that slavery even exists. When someone who is not of a privileged class tries to do something that is not a typical vocation for a lower to middle class individual, they end up becoming overtly targeted, whereas before that point they probably didn't notice the targeting was happening. This seems to be a form of psychic vampirism, whereby the target is a victim and the perpetrators are the vampires. The victims are bled dry of their creative inspiration, their resources, and any of their forms of support. The targets are made to look crazy with the evil technologies being used against them, whether through the use of implants, as in my case, or some form of heterodyning, occult magic, negative thought forms, or directed energy weapons. I have researched enough to know they have a huge arsenal at their disposal. I am led to wonder if all targets are set up since birth. Are we told a big lie about how this is the land of the free and the home of the brave, and how this country is all about liberty and justice for all, while everyone else knows the truth but aren't telling? Does everyone know that we targets who were used since birth by the vampires all around us are targets, and we don't? I have been told that I'm a ritual sacrifice, which is why my life looks like someone upstairs was playing a big joke on me. And if you've seen my other videos about symbolism and language, you'll understand what I'm talking about. Numerology does seem to play some kind of a role in the lives of various targeted individuals I have met. Could that be how many of us are picked out at birth, possibly stolen through adoption and sold into these sick programs of covert slavery? I guarantee that if you are a real target, you either have the number 12 or the number 11 in your numerology, if not both. And if not that, then I bet you might have the letters A-N in your name somewhere, especially if combined with a C or CH. Here's what they ought to say to be closer to the truth of the situation. We traumatize you from birth, and then we blame you for not being perfect. We make you nuts and then blame you for being that way. We steal from you on so many levels and then blame you for feeling the need to hold on to things, which we call selfishness. We torture your mind and then blame you for reacting to it. We steal your intellectual property and then blame you for feeling disturbed. We ruin your life and then blame you for not being able to make your way in the world. We turn your whole life upside down and then blame you for being negative. We cause you physical and mental problems, but then deny you disability. We program you from birth and then blame you for not being what you were supposed to be had we not messed with your head in the first place. And in my case, we make you spend half your childhood in a house full of mirrors and then blame you for being a narcissist. Also, in my case, we place every importance on your body as a woman and then blame you for being too focused on your body. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the world of the double bind, designed to cause cognitive dissonance in those who are the designated sacrifices. Problem, reaction, solution. They cause the problem in you and accuse you of being the problem, and then demonize you for your reaction, and the apparent solution is torturing you to death. I even heard one of them tell me that we are just food for them. Well, let them reap that karma, all of it, in my humble opinion, and I'm about tired of this crap.
Are we, yeah. Yeah, no, that is real. This lady is being tortured to death. She is a ritual sacrifice, as she said. This is happening all over the world. I'm also one of those people. I spent months, years of my life in isolation being targeted with directed energy weapons. In a moment, I'm going to show you what's inside of me. I am literally wired up internally from my head to my feet with technology. They spent years convincing me as well, but I'm also property of the British Army. I'm a psychological warfare operative. I've got to bring this above board. People have to know this. They need to know this. I've survived so many attempts on my life, it's unbelievable. But I'll perhaps go into some of that a little bit later on. I think I should move on straight away now to showing you. I might need your help in a moment, mate. Yeah, cool. Okay. Right, that's the inside of my head, that is. You know, that's my mind. It should really just belong to me. But what you can see here in the cochlear regions, they are T27 biomedical implants. Now, I was told this by a doctor at King's College Hospital in London. Went to see a friend who worked at an analyst's house in the city who works in the medical research field. We were to discover that T27 biomedical implants are openly for sale on the internet, but they're designed for non-human free-roaming primates so that they could be monitored in the wild by scientists via specialist computer and satellite monitoring equipment. In other words, high-tech monkey monitors, basically. But below my brain here as well, this is blown up so it gets a bit more distorted. I can try and take that down a bit, actually. Hang on. Yeah. As you can see below my brain here, there's a white triangular bit as well. That's a truss. This is all linked together. This is called wetware. Now, I'll move on to the next one in a moment, but you'll also see that there are probes inserted into my brain. Now, most of you these days will at least use a mobile phone or a laptop, as this one can be linked to the internet via wireless, via ELF radio waves. That's extremely low frequency radio waves which can penetrate human tissue. My brain is linked up to military computers, hence I can be completely taken control of because they can enter my brain. The computer it's linked up to can instantly translate all of my brain's electrical activity into pictures, words, even smells. You really have no idea how advanced this technology is. They're just starting to write about it in the newspapers now, and they're purporting that these sorts of things are going to be possible in about 17 years' time. This is Billy Bollocks. They could do it over 50 years ago. This has been going on since the Second World War. This started with the Nazis and the concentration camps, and that's exactly what I am, a product of that, Hitler's master race, humans blended with technology. And thereafter as well, the wiring comes through my neck. This is microwiring. It goes right through my body, it's around my waist, it's between my legs, it goes right down the back to under my feet, and I've also got another major implant at the base of my spine as well. So this is absolute total control. Now, I believe I can... Oh, it's not closed. Just let me see if I can... That's that one again. Voila. If you see on the left side here, as you look at it, which is the right, can you see the probe that's inserted in the suture of my brain? Can you see this clearly from there?
Use the pointer.
Where is it? Oh, right. No, it's not. Well, you can see it quite clearly anyway. And again, the truss below my brain here is even more pronounced. On the other side, if you look closely again, you'll see fragments of another probe which have worked their way into the soft tissue of my brain. This is because I've had, well, several massive blows to my head in my time. I fell off a roof once and landed on my face, crushed my sinus cavity. But again, I got up, and... I don't know it to be a fact, but one of the reasons I might still be alive is this technology inside of me. It's, honestly, myself, I've stood there, what's the advert? I can never remember which one it is, but the guy gets run over by a lorry and falls off a cliff and he's standing up going, this is my life. I'm like, how did I live through that? I mean, I've had so many... well, you call them accidents, they haven't all been accidents. But anyway, the list goes on. Let me show you another one as well.
Into the right-hand screen, it should come out somewhere across there, but it's a bit hard to see. It's at the top. Can you see it in the middle, at the top?
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you want to use that as a pointer.
I got you. Right. Okay, you can see in my throat region here the 3 pronounced white dots. They're implants too. You can see the brain implant there on that side. It's not showing on the other here. An MRI scan, most of you, if you don't know, it's just a slice of your head. It's not like an X-ray which sees right through. So what you're getting here is just, they've cut through the implants. Now, at the back of my upper jaws, and these are probably about, well, they're telescopic, to be frank with you. They were in there for years and dormant before I knew what they were. But they're telescopic, and they can bend like fingers do in any direction. And I've got these attached to the back of my upper jaw, essentially in the middle of my head. These are used to subdue me. These hurt like you would not believe. And I get it all the time. This is, it ranges from, mild and subtle to off the scale, really, to be frank with you. I can spend sometimes up to 24 hours at a time just completely paralysed, They could take me off my feet and knock me on the floor, just these itty-bitty little implants. This is absolute total control we're dealing with here. Is there anybody that's looking at those scans that's not convinced that this is legitimate? Good, I'm pleased to hear it. Because I've also got a letter from a doctor that's PhD level educated stating that you don't need any medical training whatsoever to see that these are foreign bodies. But when I had these scans done, but they're taken on separate machines at different hospitals, both reports that came back said there were no abnormalities. It was my GP that got me the copies of the scans, and I took them, well, he saw them himself, but he's a very frightened man. Most people that get involved with me are frightened. So I took them to people I knew, and straight away they were verified. I've also been interviewed by the national press. I was introduced to them by some seasoned hacks that that have been investigating military black ops for decades. And this, they told me, was the most significant proof they'd seen of what I am, essentially, which is a military monarch robot, to be frank with you. But it goes even deeper. And as I said to you, I've changed my mind quite a lot with regards to what I'm going to talk to you about today. As I said, predominantly because there are some far more knowledgeable people than me here with regards to things. I just deal with things firsthand. And it was quite a long time before I was able to accept what I'm told I am myself. My life really is representative of one big conspiracy. Something I rumbled when I was very young, and I've talked about constantly, about how manipulated my life has been. And I mean since my childhood. I'm not going to go into detail here and now about this, but my family are totally complicit with this. I'm from a military family. And I was quite exceptional at sport when I was young as well. I really had still have it to a degree, the agility of a cat. But I was being blocked in just about everything I tried to do in life. When I left school, I was on £50 a week from the European champions, but not really totally in the fold. I was a bit of I had an overdeveloped sense of fun, I was told, and I was rather wayward in some ways, but nonetheless I was a teenager, and I was at the top club in the country, and but my life was being manipulated in all sorts of ways, and I became very, very aware of this, and consequently very, very independent. But went on in life ultimately to own my own company in the corporate media sector. And it was after 9/11, I was a media specialist as well, so I dealt with the magazines, the newspapers, television stations and the like. And after 9/11, like everybody, I was, wow, and I've always been a bit of a gobshite, but people have generally, listened to me by and large, because a little bit like Miles, I just tell it, as I see things, and regardless of the consequences. So I started speaking about things, and people listened. And again, journalists came crawling out of the woodwork, and I was also, I won't go into too depth here, I used to hang out in the London underworld quite a lot as well, but it's not as sinister and bad as people might think. It's frightening to look at or think about, but believe me, people in those sorts of environments are a lot more straightforward and moralistic than the people I used to work with that wore suits and worked for corporate companies, believe me. So I mixed in lots and lots of different worlds, and again, this wasn't really an accident. As I said, my life had been manipulated to such a degree that I ended up in positions which were engineered, essentially, just as I have been. Because what this technology can do, via those radio waves, what you've got to think is like a two-way link, okay? Information in, information out. And the brain produces electrical activity. Now, that's carried into a computer which can instantly translate it, as I've explained, but the computer can also create electrical activity and brainwaves and send them back in, and that's how they take control, and they can alter things. So essentially, they can see everything I see, because everything I see is translated in my brain into computer language, and so they know that. Everything I say, everything that's said to me, I've got a microphone underneath one of the fillings of my tooth as well. So essentially, you know, I've been utilised for many, many things, and one of those things is a mobile, you know, surveillance unit. Mixing in the corporate world, the underworld, you know, I've been all over the world as well, and a lot of the time it was other people encouraging me to go, inviting me there, and whenever I got there, no matter what country I went to, I'd say to people, I'm being followed again. What on earth is going off? And I'd prove it to people. And obviously, you know, I've got older and older, and, you know, I rumbled things. I actually figured out what had happened to me prior to finding out that I had the technology inside of me. Now, this is when it gets really freaky. Where have I put my water down? Never mind. Yeah, does anybody know what V2K is? Do you want to start? You haven't got a microphone on, have you? V2K is voice-to-school technology. Now, the first unclassified demonstration of this was at the Walter Reed Army Institute in America. 1974, they demonstrated that a voice could be directly input into somebody's skull, so they could hear a voice inside their skull via technology. Via these implants I've got here, I've been dealing with synthetic telepathy for years. Now, when it first kicked off, it was used, as something that they call confusion weaponry. It was used to disorientate me. Obviously, they didn't like what I was saying after 9/11, but it was a little bit more poignant than that as well. I'd also been invited to Syria by a military man, but also somebody who's from a very wealthy family. They owned oil and pipeline a water company, and obviously an awful lot of money, but his interest in me was political, essentially. He introduced me to some other Muslims, very moderate, as most of them are, you know, and they pointed out to me that, look, you know, they flicked through the Arabic TV stations and the like and said, look, we've got pop shows, you know, girls in miniskirts jumping around, you know, glitter makeup and stuff. Why isn't this being promoted in your country? Why aren't they explaining that we're trying to, you know, embrace your culture, and we are doing it, but it's gradual. We're not your enemies. We love you people. We want you to come to Syria, and we want to educate you. What are the British doing for you? They said to me, we'll give you a house, a car, you know, a life, basically. And I didn't know about this technology then. And at first I wasn't having it. I said, look, I've got a business here, and, you know, I like my life, and I'm independent, and I'm politically minded, but I really don't know whether I want to get actively involved in this sort of stuff. But then I started getting targeted heavily myself for the first time, and essentially my business was being nobbled. And I started kicking back re that as well, as I do. I'm a bit of a firebrand when pushed, but I'll go into that in more detail shortly as well. So I started kicking back re that, and obviously, you know, it was going nowhere. Even people that worked for me came in and said, look, I love working here, but I can't take this anymore. It's freaking me out. I've got to leave. And I'm like, brilliant, they're doing it to me again. I am being nobbled again. So I'm thinking, right, I'm going to Syria, you know. Forget it, you know, I'm ambitious, if I can make a difference, I'll make a difference. Anyway, shortly after that, I'm in bed about 7:30 in the morning, and two very burly police officers arrive, and they're stood in my bedroom with a social worker, and I'm still in bed, and I'm saying, hello? Yes? And the social worker says, I've got a piece of paper here that says you tried to commit suicide last night. I went, no, I didn't. She said, well, it says you doused yourself in petrol in a public place and you tried to ignite it. And I said, no, I didn't. I looked at these two policemen. I said, look, lads, I said, this never happened. And they went, look, you know the score. You know, this is what the document says. You know, we're charged to come here and take you in. Now, you can either come... I said, I hear you. So I barely had time to get dressed, and I got in the back of an ambulance, and they drove me off to a secure unit. And I'm sat there, and I'm terrified, you know. I mean, who wouldn't be in these sorts of situations? I mean, what is going on? But anyway, they wouldn't let me see a solicitor either. And then, you know, they're presenting me with information which I know is completely fabricated, a load of bull, basically. And they spent weeks and weeks messing with my head. I mean, this was psychological persecution. I didn't know my arse from my elbow. I really didn't by the time they finished with me. But as well as being drugged off my face, eventually, weeks later, I got to meet a solicitor who set up a tribunal, which again they kept delaying and delaying. And my solicitor, this is like everybody that gets involved with me from officialdom, was like this with her hands. I don't know what's going on with you. You know, they're the ones breaking all the laws, she kept telling me. And, you know, I don't know what's going on. But anyway, I got this into this independent tribunal. I wouldn't say I exactly walked it, because they did fire, you know, some very difficult questions at me. But it eventually just turned around and said, we don't know how this could happen, but, you know, you're free to go, essentially. And I won this tribunal. And just like, I forgot his name, the chap who runs the UFO magazines was explaining yesterday, that when he first embarked on what... Sorry? Gary Hasseltine, that's it, Gary, I beg your pardon. I thought I was going to say Terry, and I knew it wasn't. Anyway, Gary was explaining that he got fascinated in his field, which is now his field of expertise. And at first, the authorities and the media and the like were very, very interested in what he was doing. They were, you know, they were willing to engage him. But the more information he got, in our naivety, people in this situation think, brilliant, you know, this is going to snowball. The authorities and the media are going to be really, really interested in this. Well, the same thing happened to me. I won 2 tribunals. The more information and proof I got, the less people were willing to communicate with me. Now, that's the state of play with me and the psychiatric services now, because I voluntarily went to see a whole team of them a couple of years ago, and they concluded, look, you're beyond, you know, our combined educations. We don't know how to advise you, even how to help you or to treat you. And to be frank, you know, the only question we've got is how can you deal with this? Because, you know, you really should need our help, but you don't appear that you do, so we don't think we're the appropriate people to deal with, and basically this scares the willies off us, and it seems to be all to do with the Secret Service. Which consequently, you know, I've gone on to find out that it is. I am covered by the Official Secrets Act, and have been all my life. Now, sorry, I've just lost myself to a degree. I was going to move on to something there from the psychiatrist, so it doesn't matter. I'll just chip on. Right, that was it. No. Now, I did say to them that when they said to me, look, you know, the question, how are you dealing with this? I turned around and said, well, the answer to that question really is irrational. Because if I'd have told you up front how I deal with this, you know, insofar as your textbooks are concerned, you know, I'd just be classified as having some sort of schizoid disorder, which they'd already slapped a label on me of one of those anyway previously, which I'm still living with today, but that's something else I can go into if we get time. But I explained to them about V2K, synthetic telepathy. I said, look, I get counselling. And it's genius counselling. They've kept me intact, because I don't believe as a singular human being I could possibly have dealt with everything I've dealt with and still, well, not be a vegetable, to be frank with you. I really should be. I've had some horrific physical effects on my body as well. My skin can be terribly affected, and an assortment of problems, but I can get no medical treatment whatsoever via the NHS. Don't get me wrong, I met some very, very good doctors within the NHS, and I've educated them, and they've motioned to help. But again, subsequently, they just become unavailable to me, and I end up dealing with some dickhead, to be frank. Excuse my French, I do tend to swear, smoke, and drink like a trooper, even though, you know, as far as I'm concerned, I'm not, or really shouldn't be one. But anyway, yeah, so I wind up on my own all the time. But the V2K, this is what's difficult with me. I can tell people like yourselves, you know, what I know, you know, what I know to be facts, you know, what I actually believe, and what I don't know. But you know, there's a fourth dimension here as well. It's what I learn via V2K, because I am communicated with all the time. You know, it's basically if I want communication, I can have it. And the people in the know, this is what they question me on, you know, because I do meet people that, and it's not an accident, it's been happening all my life. I meet people that, it's engineered, situations that are engineered again. Many of them say something to me that doesn't make sense at the time, it's cryptic, but it does in the future. And I am the product of a system, basically, a system that you're supposed to figure out And in figuring it out, you're supposed to go completely insane, fall into the hands of the authorities who then drug you up, and, you know, you're not a problem to anybody else. You'll find that most targets, the likes of Moo and many others I've encountered over the years whilst I've been researching, were child abuse victims, ritual child abuse victims. And so, essentially, they're putting this technology into little boys and girls who thereafter are growing up into big girls and big boys, perhaps capable of defending themselves, only to find out that they've been implanted with this horrific technology and they can be tortured out of existence. Now, the mindset of the people, the perps behind this, and this is rogue elements of the security services, are satanic. That's how I would describe their mindset, and I do believe they are satanic. And as one lady said to me that heard me speak impromptu on Friday night, it didn't come across that you're the good guy, but essentially you have to be pretty bad sometimes to be good, and I have to deal with some of the worst people imaginable, and that's who I am. I was created to oppose these people. I was sold into their system when I was a child. Now, I couldn't understand lots of aspects of my childhood until I understood monarch mind control. And then it just became, it all fell into place, and I thought, oh my God. I always had my suspicions, but like everybody else, I need facts, I need proof, I need at least to have experienced something, but to find out that these monsters start work on certain children whilst they're still in the womb. They start causing a child trauma whilst it's still in the womb. Ways they do this, playing loud rock music to it for long periods of time, or even thumping the fetus. This is to cause splits in a personality. And again, there are people that have spoken here that are a lot more knowledgeable than I am with regards to this sort of thing. And this is why bloodlines and the like and whatnot play such a big part. And epidogenics, or whatever the lady's speaking this morning, I've never heard that term until I met her. But I do understand that side of things, because things are passed on in our genes. And some of the things that are passed on are an ability to disassociate. Now, people who have an ability to disassociate make great mind control targets. So if somebody is from a family that has a history of satanic ritual abuse, the chances are that within their genes it will have been passed on that they have this ability to disassociate. Therefore, they can fracture their minds and create these separate alters very, very effectively. This has been done to me. I do know it now. And I certainly don't like the fact at all. But because of the V2K I deal with and the counselling I get, I've adopted a very, very, ultimately that is, a very, very patient approach to dealing with my circumstances, and not just my own. I'm not here just for me. I'm here to try and sort of educate people with regards to what a TI essentially is, because there's lots of them within your communities all over this country and all over the world, and they are treated horrifically, not only by the authorities but by their peers and people around them, because they talk about things which don't make sense to a lot of people, but they are the most tortured individuals you can possibly imagine. What this is, literally, it's akin, it is on a par with the concentration camps the Nazis had. It is as bad. But to be frank with you, most of them would turn around and say, well, look, just gas me or shoot me in the head. I want this over with, because this is long and it's drawn out, and that the weaponry that's being used on them is just... It's as bad as things get. I mean, this is microwave technology. I had an email sent to me just before things kick off. It said they like to warn you up front as to what's afoot. And it was a cat in a microwave oven. And if you press number 1, it started to get a bit worried. And if you pressed number 2, it really started to feel it. And you went up the scale till it was screaming and pulling its hair out and saying, let me out, let me out. I thought this was a bit sick, but mildly amusing at the time, but it was purposely sent to me as what we call a trigger, a psychological trigger. Now, this is to cause you distress in the future, because when they start microwaving you, all these things come back. Now, I've had these sorts of things done to me all my life. I've been triggered up, basically. And every now and then I will go through a bit of an episode where they'll be hitting me with psychological triggers, and it will start messing with my head, and I have to deal with this. But I've become very proficient at doing so, and I've turned a massive corner now. And as I said, initially the V2K was used to disorientate me, and make it difficult for me to function and exist. But that has completely turned about now. It's never detrimental. I get the most incredible psychological support you can imagine, and that is a part of who I am, an intrinsic part. Where it's going from here, I don't know. But essentially, there are things that I'm still stood here thinking, man, should I talk about this? Should I tell them about that? But I suppose I should emphasise that what I said earlier about, there are things about my life which I know to be facts. This technology in my head and the rest of my body is a fact, you know. I can be taken complete control of. It's a fact because I've had the demonstrations. They can put pictures in my head, videos in my head, sounds, whatever. They can influence me in an infinite amount of ways. But there's what I don't know. This is a conjecture I've learned, you know, from research. And there's what I learned via V2K. Now, if what I've learned via V2K is true, you know, wow, you know, we are looking at something quite incredible. And to be honest with you, no, I'd be out here like a rat in a trap if they take this stuff out of me. As I said on Friday night, I would live like Bob Marley given half a chance. I play football and mess about. I won't swear this time either. But I really don't have any choice. And this is how I'm pacified, you know, in my mind, because they explain things to me. They give me justification. They tell me that I've saved the lives of untold amounts of children and also prevented a nuclear war in the future, because I am literally linked up to a computer and they play war games with my mind. I'm put into situations where I have to negotiate. Our country is under threat, and it's usually the bloody Americans I'm dealing with as well, to be frank with you. And I'm told all this, and I can be sat, I remember this vividly, I'm looking at a drape in my friend's house, you know, a lace drape, and on there they just, it looks like it's project, but it's done in my head. They show a mushroom cloud of a nuclear bomb going off. And they pacify me like this. They say, look, Kieron, you've prevented this. We cannot justify having stolen your life and taken it away, but you have prevented this. And honestly, my attitude a lot of the time is, and excuse my swearing, I do swear, but I'm entitled to, given what's been done to me. Bollocks is what I tell them. Just as I said to the doctor that told me what was wrong with me. But no, they persist and they explain it to me and they see me through things and they carry me through. And every time I might be sort of like wilting to a degree, they'll pick me up. But this doesn't mean to say that I get an easy ride, because as they explained to me, there are a lot of people that do want me dead. And I am targeted all the time with directed energy weaponry. In the 2 weeks coming up to this, Miles was calling me up. And I'm no way am I an alcoholic. I usually drink about twice a week, but I do like to get bladdered at times because, you know, you can escape, and when you're wearing this stuff, it does help to a degree. And I also smoke dope too, because that is the mind control target's drug of choice. When, you know, I'm nearly 50, so I should really have given that up by now and whatever. But, you know, when your mind is being shut down by technological means and whatever, if you can smoke something that'll open it back up again, you know, wow, brilliant. Because I will not take NHS drugs, psychiatric drugs and the like. I've tried them, you know, because I've thought myself I must be schizo. And I've got there, I thought, all right, leap of faith, I'll give them a go. But they're not. They exacerbate things. They make things far, far worse. And, you know, again, as I put it, when the reporter, you know, asked me from the newspaper, I said, look, it just makes life a bag of shit, basically. It's not worth living, you know. It's bad enough dealing with what I'm dealing with, let alone when I've got those in the system as well. So no, I don't need them, and I'm not going anywhere near them. And thankfully, they're not trying to pump me full of them anymore either, because they have been used, literally. They've given me the chemical kosh without the antidotes, knowing full well that I was going out to an isolated place. And I spent 2.5 days climbing the walls in this place before I managed to get to a hospital and find a doctor who established that I needed an antidote to this and should have had it. Under no means, circumstances whatsoever, should I have been given this drug without the others. And this sort of thing has been done to me purposely. And this has been done by NHS staff. And this is how targets are treated. And the general populace needs to know this. These people, the likes of Moo, they need help. I've needed help a lot more than I do now. I can cope. You know, well, I shouldn't really say I can cope, because I shouldn't be coping with it. It is horrific. But this is a technological concentration camp. They've got people in their own homes implanted with this technology. Doctors are denying it, actively denying it as well, because a lot of them are totally aware of it, and they're being targeted with microwave weaponry and assorted other stuff as well, and for various reasons, sometimes just to experiment on them. And Moo, for instance, is a single mother. They seem to be the preferable ones, you know, essentially because they're vulnerable, really. You know, their priority is to always put their child first. They don't have partners. Microchild targets generally cannot hold down relationships. It's nigh on impossible, you know. It's for someone who's not dealing with what a TI deals with. It's incomprehensible to most, and also it's extreme, and it's hardly sort of like life-enhancing either. You know, it is a horror show, literally a horror show. And I know for a fact that the newspapers know this in this country. They've interviewed me, launched an investigation, and then told me that they've been censored. I know that they know it in the mainstream media across the board. I know politicians know it. I've got a letter from the House of Commons acknowledging this technology inside of me. I've met twice with my MP, Riet, and I also took him a man that had flown in from South America, a British man that was paying thousands of pounds to have operations, to have the technology taken out of him. And he got on a plane after fleeing an operating theatre, still with open wounds, because they'd knocked him out with general anaesthetic, come in and put more stuff into him, and he'd refused to let them near him again. Come to see me, and I took him directly to my doctor and then to my MP. My MP flatly refused to help at that point. Consequently, I lost my rag at him and spoke my mind, but I'm glad I did. And I've not finished with him either, because I've told a lot of people like him that they're going to be seeing me again. I'm going to go full circle. I'm going to revisit things. I'm going to have them, basically. But first of all, the general populace needs to wake up with what's going on, because your children, the next generation of children, are all going to have microchips inserted into their brains. It is going to happen. It is going to be their first experience of life, neurosurgery, an injection straight into the brain. Once this has happened, you know, there can be no political dissent in the future. Everybody will be assigned a sort of job to do. They will robotise our society. What's inside of me, yes, is large. You know, this is extensive stuff, but it was put into me in 1975. You know, technology has advanced so far since between then and now that we're dealing with nanotechnology. This is practically impossible to detect with modern scanning equipment. And it's just one injection into a vein, the implant opens up like an umbrella, it's carried around your system and it's logged into your brain, and everything that can be done to me with this rig up I've got inside of me can then thereafter be done to that child or that human being. And believe me, I've seen the information that this relates to. The American government has bought millions and millions of these chips from a German company. They haven't bought them not to use them. The mainstream media at the moment is conditioning people to accept it. I've got a blog, and I think the last post I put on there was a BBC article explaining that they're going to be able to treat drug addicts and people with post-traumatic stress and depression and the like by putting a chip into the brain, because they can erase memories. They can make them forget that they were a heroin addict. Well, this is brilliant. But the thing is, they're lying through their teeth all the time. What they're doing is trying to get people to accept it. And if people accept it, they're doing a sell job on us. If we accept it, we can't oppose it. So stealthily, they are now working on nailing us all, basically. We do have an us and them situation. They declared war on the globe's population a very, very long time ago, and we're just waking up. And something's got to be done about it. And reluctantly, and I will state this, reluctantly, this is who I am. You know, I am somebody that's spent the last few years kicking down doors, basically, using myself as a battering ram, putting myself in the firing line, and trying to get the powers that be to do something about this. But it's all been research for me as well, because, you know, I read a long time ago that, you know, there are, globally there are international intelligence agreements in place to suppress and deny any information relating to the usage and deployment of this technology at all. And I guarantee you there is, because I've tested everything, everywhere. I've been everywhere. The media, medics, law, you name it, I've spoke to them. The civil rights companies, they know full well what's going on, but they're complicit. Do not give them another bloody penny. People in this country are being tortured out of existence, tortured to death. And I told them a couple of weeks ago, look, you're complicit, because if you release one article, the general populace would start to believe this. But when they're told the sorts of things that I'm telling you now, they automatically think to themselves, nah, it can't be happening, because if it was happening, Liberty or Amnesty International would be saying something about this, surely. And the fact that they aren't, you know, does amount to complicity, because they know this, and I've nailed them on it, because I'm a salesman, a board-level salesperson, and I didn't lead with my chin, and I got put onto somebody quite senior there, and I did it on purpose to test things, and I've been doing that, you know, all over the place. When I walk into my local police station, it's like Keystone Cops. It's like, oh, God, he's here again, you know, because I nail them, and they're like, look, we want to help Kieron, you know, we know an amount, and it's like, what can we do? And I said, well, look, give me a list of names and locations, and I'll go around and shoot them in the face. And I mean it, you know, because these people are that bad, and we have to stop them. But no, I'm not for a moment going to suggest that we have a violent uprising. We wouldn't have a bloody chance. We can change things. We can change things massively, but we have to change them politically. But if we're going to change them, first of all, we need options. You know, at the moment, all we get is a choice between three bloody cronies, basically, that all answer to the same political machine. We don't have a choice, but it doesn't matter who we vote in. Nothing's going to change. Nothing is going to change. We do need all the things that they promise us, transparency and openness and the like, before the elections. You know, this is what we need, literally, we do. And it's not going to happen until we make it happen. Our politicians, as things stand at the moment, are not going to change the world. They're not going to improve things. They can make laws, they can legislate to a degree, and they can start wars. Engineers are the ones that can make a better world. We've already got, you know, the options of clean energy. We all know this, particularly an educated crowd like yourselves. The solutions are there and in place, and it is a brass tack. You know, if we don't do something and do something very soon and bring about some change, we are, well, our children's children at least. You know, I mean, forget it. But the planet's going to die on us, and they're actively instigating this. But I'm not going to go off on my eco-warrior bit. I'm going to try and come back onto something that's more relevant to me. I must admit I'm a little bit disturbed. I've got more of a double chin than I thought. This is winding me up. Right, okay. So, yeah. You know, a lot of people recently have kind of been chasing me for my life story. The journalists, man, they're honest. They're like, Kieron, you're not going to be alive for much longer. This has got to live on beyond. I'm like, cheers, you know, thank brilliant. But they have been, and I've been, you know, considering as to who I'm going to give it to. My favourite actually is a national newspaper. There's only one newspaper that I'll give any credence to now. I'm not even going to give you the name at the moment. You'll find out future-wise. But they've tried. They really have tried. They told me, we want to go to print on this, Kieron. We really do, but this is unprecedented for us. We don't even know what authority we're dealing with, but we do know you're telling the truth. And if you think we don't want to report on this, think again. And somebody else I was speaking to yesterday, another target, she's not here today, but she came to speak to me because, as I said, I try and stand up for TIs, and she's a TI, and she said, look, where I live, nobody even speaks to me anymore now, because I've been targeted, and part and parcel of that is smearing me, and they've painted me such an atrocious person, and it's not only that, they influenced my child that way, because my child's now with my ex-husband, who's a horrible individual, and I'm not, but they've taken control of my whole life, and they've trashed it and ruined it. And she said, I want to give up. We're winding up, all right, dude. So essentially, yeah, I mean, what can we do? I mean, I'm going to be speaking again before long. This is a bit of a precursor for me. I wanted to learn from people here, you know, decide myself exactly what message I want to convey, but essentially I get very frustrated with documentaries the like and sometimes lectures, because they tell us what the score is, but then we all go away with a head full of things thinking, well, what can we do? You know, because you've all seen Moo up there. If you could help Moo, wouldn't you help Moo? You know, we donate hundreds of thousands to animal welfare. You've got a human being, a highly, highly intelligent human being there, being tortured to death. But because nobody would admit it and everybody denies it, she's living with it day in and day out. And I would like to think that the likes of Miriam here, wherever you are, will contact Moo for me and have a chat with her, because she doesn't know I was going to screen her up here today. But once she finds out she has, she'll probably go in a shell a little bit. But if people start to contact her over the internet, it will give her hope. And Moo's only one target. There are thousands around the world, and she's in contact with others. They need our help. And that's what I'm trying to do, is expose their plight. So people will stop avoiding them. Well, I ain't going anywhere near that. This is what people say to me. even good friends. Like, I'm not getting involved with it, Kieron, because it might impact on me. They might start targeting me. And I said, well, that's a fact. But if we don't do something about it, we're all foot, honestly. We really are. So this isn't like me doing a book promotion and whatever, because I really don't want to do this. I'm going to have to sort of like, you know, openly and publicly, you know, explain certain things about my life, which I rather would not do. But in doing that, I believe I can set free an awful lot of people that were sold into slavery, just like I was as a child. So I'm going to hand out lots of cards now. I got them printed for this conference, so I'm just going to hand them out. I'd like you to take them. There's going to be some on the table out there, and I want you to go to my blog and have a read, but also follow it, because I'm now going to tell my story. I'm going to do it myself online. Rather than give it to the newspapers for when I'm dead, because it'll be twisted. That's what they will do. They'll twist it and they'll repaint it. The victors write the history, but no one's beating this. No one's beating me. No, and that's my character, and that's what the army tell me. This is why I'm in the position I am. But I'm going to finish off with something here, because this is something I don't know to be true, but this is something I've been told via V2K. I was never a magical thinker. As far as I was concerned, life was about having fun. You know, if we're gifted with life, we should just be enjoying it. You know, and that's as I saw things, and achieve and what have you. But I've been educated with regards, not just there by these people as well, that there is a lot more to it than I knew. You know, but there's a lot more to me than I knew. I don't know this now. I'm quite happy to accept that my family, as I knew them, are my true and real family, but I have some serious doubts. I always did in a way, but a lot of other people went out of their way to tell me that they're not. Now I have to try and decipher this, you know, because a lot's done to confuse me and disorientate me. But when I say to you my life is a conspiracy, I've had this conspiracy explained to me in quite some depth in my head, and what they tell me, I don't know if this is done to motivate me. I'll tell you what, front, you'll all have heard of Paul Weller, you know, my favourite singer, to be frank with you, but in the words of one of his songs, they let you think you're king, but you're really a pawn. Now, what he's referring to, I believe I know, it's a system, a British system, predominantly a male system, and it's very, very brutal, and it's how people are manipulated. And I was sold into this when I was young. This is how they handle people that have been sold into slavery when they get older. The difference being, though, is I'm told that I really am not my parents' son, that I'm the grandson of Edward VIII. Now, Edward VIII, I happen to bear quite a resemblance to him as well. I mean, I must say it myself, this young lady here pointed the same thing out yesterday. When I look at photographs of me when I was a younger man, I think, crumbs, yeah. I mean, my face is all swollen and what now, but it's got slimmer than this technology makes it swell up. But I do think it, and again, I can't accept this, but it keeps coming up, and they're telling me this. Now, you think about it, this technology came from the Nazis. Now, if he was my grandpappy, he used to hang around with Hitler. Now, it figures, really. He abdicated, and I've read quite a bit about this now for obvious reasons, and really, Hitler was going to put him back on the throne after we'd been conquered. Now, I believe the Second World War was part of one big conspiracy, and things have just continued beyond. Now, if this is true, and don't quote me on this, because I don't know it to be a fact at all, and I'm quite happy, you know, to accept that it's not the case. But if it is true, it makes complete sense that the British Army then took me in and put me into this system which is really designed around, you must have heard the words, I didn't know about any of that, I get it all told in my head. Have you heard the words, Kieron? If he is a true king, he will be sold into slavery as a child, and he will fight his way out of it.
Times.
I'm just finishing on that line. I was just about to say, this is who I'm told I am. I don't know it to be a fact, but we'll see. You know, I could well be your true king. You never know.
Well done, Kieron. You did a good job. You could hear a pin drop in here. Okay. We got a 1 hour, 20 minutes lunch break. 2:20, we're going to have the first 3 speakers question and answers. Okay, at 2:20. After lunch, it'll be Matthew Williams, crop circles, and what they actually see when they've been making them. Okay?